What if the book of Genesis, often considered the foundational narrative of creation, actually recounts not one, but two distinct creations of humanity? For countless generations, we've been accustomed to reading the opening chapters of the Bible as a single, uninterrupted narrative. We typically envision God bringing forth the heavens and the earth, then creating humankind, both male and female, and subsequently placing them within an idyllic garden. However, if we pause and look closer, slowing down our ingrained interpretations, something truly profound begins to emerge. Genesis chapter 1 paints a picture of humanity created majestically in the image of God, both male and female, brought into existence without specific names, without a localized place, and seemingly without limitation. Yet, when Genesis chapter 2 unfolds, the narrative tone dramatically shifts. Suddenly, we encounter a man formed from the dust of the ground, a specific garden with clear boundaries, a woman drawn intimately from his side, the ominous presence of a serpent, a pivotal test, and ultimately, a tragic fall. These aren't merely two slightly different accounts of the same event. These are two distinct stories within one sacred book, and their diverging details are far from accidental. This isn't a contradiction to be reconciled. It's a revelation waiting to be uncovered. Could it be that the Bible doesn't commence with a singular creation story, but rather with a mystery so profound it has remained hidden in plain sight for millennia? A mystery that speaks not only of ancient, foundational events, but also illuminates our present identity and the spiritual struggle that rages within every human soul. The profound truth lies in the very names attributed to God within these chapters. In the first account, he is called Elohim. In the second, he is referred to as Yahweh Elohim. This isn't merely a poetic variation. It is a deeply prophetic distinction. In just a moment, we will delve into a segment of Genesis that few ever discuss, a pivotal moment where Cain, the son of Adam, unveils a truth that challenges everything we thought we knew about the very first humans. And here is a profound insight you may never forget. Sometimes, the deepest mystery isn't found in what the Bible explicitly states, but in what we have never been taught to truly perceive. If you've ever felt a profound internal division, torn between two aspects of your being, one reaching for the divine, the other feeling inextricably bound to the earth and its limitations, this revelation might very well be the answer you've unknowingly sought. Have you ever noticed how Genesis 1 and Genesis chapter 2 seem to tell the same grand story, yet do so with subtle, critical differences? In the first chapter, creation unfurls like a magnificent cosmic poem. Elohim, the transcendent God, speaks light into existence, elegantly separates the heavens from the waters, populates the earth with abundant life, and then, almost without overt warning, humanity spontaneously appears. Let us make man in our image, he declares. And so it is done. Male and female together are created. No individual names are given. No personal story is detailed. No specific location is assigned. It is simply a divine reflection, echoing across the vast expanse of creation. This account is majestic, grand, universal, depicting a humanity seemingly without borders, born purely from divine light and purpose. Then, Genesis chapter 2 enters the narrative, and everything undergoes a significant transformation. The rhythm of the story slows considerably. Yahweh Elohim, the relational God, steps onto the scene. He does not merely speak man into being. He intricately forms him, not from ethereal light, but from the dust of the ground. He personally breathes the breath of life into his nostrils. He carefully plants a garden, placing the man within its confines. Subsequently, he brings forth a woman, not created simultaneously alongside the man, but intimately from within him. What we are presented with are two distinct accounts, featuring two different names for God and describing two unique creation sequences. For those who pay meticulous attention, these are not mere repetitions, but profound distinctions. Some theologians and scholars suggest that chapter 2 serves as a close-up, a poetic retelling or elaboration of chapter 1. Yet, Others, including ancient rabbis, Christian mystics, and diligent readers throughout history, have discerned something far deeper, that perhaps we are not reading two perspectives of a single event, but rather witnessing the unveiling of two distinct types of humanity. Consider this revealing pattern. In Genesis 1, we are explicitly told that humans were made in God's image. However, there is no mention of Eden, no specific garden, no forbidden tree, no testing of obedience, and no account of a fall. In stark contrast, Genesis 2 introduces all of these critical elements: boundaries, specific commandments, and the profound consequences of choice. The first creation, therefore, reflects inherent glory and divine essence. The second, on the other hand, immediately confronts weakness, vulnerability, and potential failure. The first is cosmic in its scope. The second is intensely covenantal and personal. And here's the crucial question that is rarely asked. If these two accounts were truly intended to describe the very same moment, why are the narrative tone, the specific name used for God, and the fundamental nature of humanity depicted so completely differently? The Bible, after all, is not a book that wastes words. If a story is recounted twice, it's not merely for reiteration. It is to convey something deeper, a truth we might not have been prepared to grasp the first time. And just maybe, perhaps, the first creation wasn't superseded or replaced, it was simply forgotten. There's a quiet, yet monumental, shift between Genesis 1 and Genesis chapter 2, and it is intrinsically linked to the name of God himself. In chapter 1, the majestic creator is referred to simply as Elohim, a name that intrinsically conveys immense power, divine majesty, and an impenetrable mystery. It is a plural word, yet paradoxically used in the singular, speaking to a divine sovereignty so vast it transcends human comprehension. Elohim speaks, and entire galaxies burst into formation. He commands, and life spontaneously erupts across the cosmos. This portrayal is transcendent, distant, and infinite. However, in chapter 2, the divine name undergoes a profound change. He is now Yahweh Elohim, often translated as the Lord God. This isn't a mere stylistic detail. It is a fundamental doorway into understanding. Yahweh is the sacred, covenantal name of God, the name he uses when he intimately walks with his people, when he graciously reveals his very heart, and when he binds himself in profound relationship. It is intensely personal, deeply intimate, often unspoken, and utterly sacred. This alteration in name is not accidental. It powerfully reflects a fundamental shift in both the narrative focus and the very nature of creation being described. In Genesis 1, Elohim brings forth a humanity of pure light, bearing the radiant divine image. But in Genesis 2, Yahweh Elohim meticulously forms a man from the humble dust of the earth and then personally breathes into him the breath of life. He doesn't merely declare life. He physically touches it. He bends low, intimately entering the story of creation. We are no longer observing a distant, cosmic deity shaping the universe. We are witnessing a profoundly relational God lovingly sculpting a fragile, earthly being. Some scholars propose that the change in names simply indicates two different authors or two distinct literary traditions. But what if it signals something far more profound, something embedded within the divine narrative itself? What if the transition from Elohim to Yahweh Elohim signifies a shift in the very kind of creation being detailed? One crafted in glory, the other formed in delicate tension. One carrying the essence of divine light, the other carrying the weighty substance of dust. One bearing the breath of divine likeness, the other bearing the weight of divine discipline and responsibility. And yet, both loved, both formed with divine purpose, and both integral parts of God's unfolding, overarching plan. Perhaps these divine names do not merely tell us who God is, but rather how he chooses to meet us. First in awe-inspiring majesty, then in profound mercy. First as the transcendent creator, then as the intimate redeemer. And if this crucial shift in the divine name truly marks a fundamental shift in creation, then what else within Genesis have we been mistakenly reading as mere repetition when it was always meant to be a groundbreaking revelation? If Genesis 1 and Genesis chapter 2 are not, in fact, describing the exact same moment in time, but rather two distinct acts of divine creation, then we are confronted with a mystery far deeper and more expansive than most have ever dared to consider. In chapter 1, there is no mention of Eden, no serpent, no fall from grace. Humanity is created male and female, together, in the pristine image of Elohim. There is no reference to dust, no rib, no specific breath of life, and no confined garden. No warnings are issued, no exile is foreseen, only pure, unblemished reflection, light emanating from light. This humanity is cosmic in scale, complete in its essence, and divinely commissioned to be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. However, the second account radically shifts its focus. Here, a singular man is meticulously formed from the dust of the ground. Jesus wasn't merely offering agricultural advice. He was revealing the invisible, intricate design of this world. He showed us that light and darkness would indeed grow together, that truth and deception would develop under the very same sun, and that both would reach their full maturity before the ultimate, final separation. It is not our finite task to sort or judge them. Our crucial responsibility is simply to recognize the nature of the field we are standing in. Some souls carry profound echoes of Genesis 1, tantalizing glimpses of a higher purpose and divine origin. Others remain intrinsically bound to the earth, formed entirely by the dust from which they came. And yet, both are integral parts of God's unfolding story, not because they are equal in their ultimate destiny, but because they serve a greater, more intricate design. The wheat, representing truth, reveals its authentic nature most clearly by standing in stark contrast to what is false. The children of light shine brightest when contrasted against the encroaching shadows around them. So, what if the divisions we currently perceive in the world aren't merely a breakdown of order, but rather a prophecy actively in progress? And more profoundly, what if God intentionally allows both to flourish side by side, so that when the final harvest arrives, there will be absolutely no doubt about who truly belongs to Him? If Eden was not the absolute beginning of humanity, perhaps it was instead a poignant reminder, a sacred echo of what came before, and simultaneously a divine signal of what glorious future lies ahead. The second creation, formed from dust, was never intended as a punishment. It was a carefully crafted path, a precise design through which God would ultimately reveal not only His unwavering justice, but also His boundless mercy. Adam was indeed shaped from the ground, yes, but God still breathed His own divine spirit into him. That sacred breath was more than mere life. It was a profound memory, a memory of light, of glory, of a time before the trials and testing ever began. And even after the devastating fall, even after the painful exile from the garden, God never definitively sealed the story. Instead, He meticulously wrote a path for return. John 1 verses 4 to 14 beautifully tells us that the Word, Christ Himself, became flesh and dwelt among us. The divine light willingly entered the dust. The spiritual intimately entered the physical realm. Jesus became the perfect, living bridge between both creations. He didn't come to physically transport us back to Eden. He came to awaken the profound essence and representation that Eden truly embodied within us. In Him, the pristine image of God is fully restored. In Him, the two creations are reconciled, and through Him, the way back to divine communion is opened once more. But the narrative doesn't conclude there. Revelation 21 vividly describes a new heaven and a new earth, a holy city descending from above. No more sorrow, no more pain, no more exile. It's not merely Eden restored. It's Eden magnificently transformed. The first creation began with pure light, and the final creation culminates in everlasting glory. Perhaps we weren't cast out of Eden as a mere punishment. Perhaps we were sent forth so that we could truly remember how to consciously return. And now, the question is no longer, can we physically go back? The profound question is, are we truly willing to follow the map he has already drawn in his own sacrificial blood? So, what if the Bible has been subtly telling us two overarching stories all along? Not just the narrative of how the world began, but the profound story of what kind of world we were inherently made for. Not merely the creation of man, but the revelation of two distinct humanities, one formed in ethereal light, the other meticulously shaped in earthy dust, one remembering its heavenly origin, the other struggling through the trials of earthly existence. And now, this choice is no longer an abstract theological concept, because both creations are vibrantly alive inside you right now. You are the fertile field. You are the divine breath. You are the humble dust. You are the faint echo of what was tragically lost, and simultaneously the vital vessel of what can be gloriously restored. So, let the question profoundly linger. Which one are you becoming? Which part of your nature are you truly feeding? Because the call of the first creation still resonates, not in thundering pronouncements or fiery displays, but in every quiet, ineffable longing to return to the one who originally shaped you in pure light. And if you have felt that profound longing deep within your soul, then rest assured, this message was not a mere accident. It was a map leading you back to the pristine image, back to the life-giving breath, back to the essence of Eden. If this profound truth has stirred something significant within you, we encourage you to share it widely. Let others hear this compelling mystery they were never explicitly taught to see. Leave a comment below. Tell us what particularly resonated with you. Subscribe for more profound insights, because this isn't just intricate theology. It is ancestral memory. It is core identity. It is unfolding prophecy. And the deeper you dare to go, the more clearly you will ultimately remember. You were not merely made from dust. You were purposefully shaped by light, and you were never, ever meant to forget it. He is then placed in a specific garden, not the entirety of the earth, but only Eden. He is notably alone. Following this, a divine breath imbues him with life. A specific command not to eat from a certain tree is issued, and a woman is sculpted, not from the earth, but from his very side. For the very first time in the biblical narrative, the possibility of failure, temptation, and disobedience enters the story. These are clearly not redundant versions of the same origin story. Rather, they are two distinct portraits of human nature itself. One spiritual, luminous, and inherently free. The other earthly, fragile, and put to the test. Some ancient traditions throughout history echo this profound contrast. In Jewish mysticism, for instance, there is the concept of the Adam Kadmon, or primordial Adam, a being not physical but radiant, emanated directly from the divine essence itself. He is not bound by physicality, but is archetypal, not local but cosmic. In stark contrast, the Adam of Eden is the man of the earth, meticulously formed in time and space, bound to obedience, susceptible to suffering, and subject to mortality. He does not radiate light, he bleeds. Side by side, these two Adams represent not a contradiction, but a profound contrast. One reflects pure divine intention, the other, divine intervention in a more tangible, earthly realm. In the Midrash, ancient rabbinical commentaries delve into the enigmatic story of Lilith, a woman said to have been formed simultaneously with Adam, but who refused to submit to his authority and consequently departed from the garden. Is her story merely myth or a potent metaphor? While her narrative remains obscure, its implications are remarkably sharp, that there might have been a time before Eden and other human-like beings besides Eve. Early Christian Gnostic texts, unearthed from the sands of Egypt, speak of divine sparks of light tragically trapped within physical flesh, of souls that dimly recall a glorious light they can no longer name. These texts were vehemently condemned as heretical, burned, and painstakingly erased from mainstream history. But were they deemed dangerous because they were demonstrably false, or because they resonated too closely with something profoundly forgotten. Even the Apostle Paul, in 1 Corinthians 15 verses 45 to 49, seems to echo this very pattern when he describes two Adams, one a natural, earthly man, the other a life-giving, spiritual being, one from the dust, the other from heaven. When you scrutinize these accounts, a compelling pattern begins to emerge, a profound light existing before the garden, a lineage of humanity preceding Adam, a deep memory embedded before the ultimate fall. These are not rigid doctrines, but rather profound signals. They signal that Genesis may first not be describing the absolute first moment of human life on earth, but rather the pivotal moment when heaven itself touched earth in a profound new way. Perhaps Eden wasn't the very beginning of humanity, but rather a divine interruption of something far more ancient than mere dust. Let's shift our focus from the grand mystery surrounding us to the profound mystery that resides within each of us. For even if you've never consciously questioned the distinct narratives of Genesis 1 and 2, you have undoubtedly felt the internal tension they so eloquently describe. The Bible isn't merely narrating two distinct creations in the distant past. It is revealing two creations that are vibrantly alive within us right now. In 1 Corinthians 15 verses 45 to 49, Paul makes a striking and deeply personal comparison. He states, "The first man Adam became a living soul, the last Adam, a life-giving spirit. One is from the earth, made of dust, the other is from heaven. And just as we have borne the image of the earthly man, we are called to bear the image of the heavenly." This isn't merely eloquent poetry. It is a profound reality that resonates within your very being. You've experienced it, the constant, often conflicting pull between two selves, one that ardently hungers for God, and another that subtly or overtly resists his call, one that instinctively remembers light, and another that stubbornly clings to the limitations of dust. Ancient Hebrew thought, with its deep wisdom, recognized this very internal struggle. They spoke of the nephesh, the soul intricately bound to the physical body, driven by appetite, instinct, and survival. And then they spoke of the neshama, the breath from God, that intrinsic part of you that never truly forgets its divine origin. You are, in essence, both. You embody the Adam of Eden, shaped from the ground, inherently vulnerable to temptation and the struggles of this world. Yet, you are also the image-bearer of Genesis 1, still glowing with the inherent breath of Elohim. This internal war is far from theoretical. It is a daily, lived experience. Every decision we make, every temptation we face, every prayer we utter, becomes a battleground between these two fundamental natures. The dust within us urges us to merely survive. The spirit within us calls us to surrender. The dust tells us to take what we desire. The spirit whispers to trust in a higher power. Perhaps this is precisely why the two creations were never meant to cancel each other out, but rather to intensely collide, to refine our beings, and to ultimately awaken the divine spark within. Jesus Christ did not come to utterly destroy the atom of dust within us. Instead, he came to fill him with radiant light. He willingly entered the second creation, the realm of dust, limitation, and fallibility, so that the essence of the first creation, the divine image, might gloriously rise again within each of us. This is why Paul doesn't simply instruct us to admire the second Adam, Christ. He calls us to become like him. It's not just about believing in Christ, but allowing Christ to resurrect and restore the image of God we might have believed was irrevocably lost. So, perhaps the true question isn't, which creation do you fundamentally come from? Rather, the more profound question is, which creation are you actively feeding? For one will inevitably grow stronger, one will ultimately rule your inner landscape, and one will undeniably survive the purifying fire. The choice you make today is already shaping the very person you are destined to become. If the profound narrative of Genesis truly reveals two distinct types of humanity, one spiritual, one physical, then the very fabric of the world we inhabit begins to make a different kind of sense. The pervasive divisions we observe aren't merely political, cultural, or generational. They are, at their deepest level, spiritual, ancient, and intrinsically woven into the very soil of creation itself. Some individuals are profoundly drawn to pursue truth, holiness, and light, guided by an intrinsic pull towards something higher. Others, however, actively reject that light, not necessarily out of ignorance, but perhaps because they were never genuinely seeking it in the first place. And yet, both types of humanity live side by side, intertwined. Jesus himself described this profound mystery in the parable found in Matthew 13 verses 24 to 30. A man meticulously sows good seed in his field, but while he sleeps, an enemy cunningly plants weeds among the nascent wheat. When the crops eventually mature and rise together, the servants eagerly ask if they should pull out the weeds. But the wise master replies, "No, let them grow side by side until the harvest." Two distinct lineages, coexisting in one field, all part of one overarching divine plan. And if you're now wondering what happened next after the fall, after Cain, after the profound events of Eden, you should absolutely explore the story of the Nephilim, the mysterious giants born of the enigmatic union between the sons of God and the daughters of men. It is one of the Bible's darkest and most hidden chapters, offering a startling glimpse into the possibility that the line between human and divine might be far thinner than we ever dared to imagine.